Yeah, okay, so my position's Professor of Horticultural Science, and so quite obviously what I do is research into horticultural crops. I'm based in Bundaberg, and if I was to pick anywhere in the country to be based to be a horticultural researcher, here would be the spot. Within about a 100-kilometre radius of where we're standing at the moment, there's roughly $500 million worth of annual horticultural production, and the range of crops is quite staggering, from perennial tree crops like mangoes and macadamias to vegetable crops. We're really big producers of a whole range of different crops. I think Queensland in total produces about a third of Australia's vegetables, and there are 3 big production regions in Queensland, and Bundaberg's one of those 3 areas. So I would be guessing 10 to 15% of Australia's vegetables from this area. But in amongst the crops we have things like sweet potatoes, where 90% of Australia's sweet potatoes are grown in the Bundaberg region. What would be some other examples? I would think things like zucchinis. There'd be a big proportion of Australia's zucchini production comes from this area. And for some of the tree crops, we're probably the most rapid growing macadamia production region in the country, and will soon be the biggest region. Avocados, mangoes, there's a big range of crops where we are a substantial part of Australia's production. Sugarcane's a really important part of the production system in Bundaberg. So around 70 to 80% of the land area used for agriculture has cane on it. And a lot of the vegetable crops are grown in rotation with the sugarcane. So we probably wouldn't want to see a big shift away from sugarcane, because you need a certain area for the industry to remain viable. And there's a really good synergy between the cane production and the vegetable production. The cane production allows the soil to regenerate a little bit after vegetable production. But cane, 80% of the land area, $160, $170 million a year production. The horticultural crops, 20% of the area, $400 to $500 million. Clearly the big money, not necessarily profitability, is in the horticultural sector. Bundy is a production region. It's got a number of really distinct advantages. First of all, the climate, and I guess that's one of the reasons I love living here, because the climate is beautiful most of the year. A little bit warm for a month or two over the summer, but the rest of the year, absolutely beautiful weather. And if it's perfect for people, plants love it too. So we're able to produce crops pretty much for 12 months of the year, which is a distinct advantage over most other production regions. But in addition to the climate, we also have some beautiful soils. So behind me you can see the rich red soils that a lot of our vegetable crops are grown in Bundaberg. It's actually it's a volcanic soil, and it's got iron in it, and iron rusts. And so what we're really looking at is rusty soil. So it's the oxides of iron which give it that distinctive red colour. We also have perhaps one of the most reliable water supplies of any area in Australia. I mean, perhaps we've had a little bit too much water in some recent years, but the tropical rainfall that gets captured in the storage dams provides irrigation water to support the industries for as long as we want to grow our crops here. So that climate, soils, available water. And I guess if you put the people in there, we've got a lot of really cluey agricultural operators in this district who that knowledge helps us to be a really competitive industry. So my research is, I'm employed by the university, but 50% of my position is funded by the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries. So it's that partnership between the university and the department that tends to focus where my research happens. The department's very interested in expanding the production of agriculture, and so from a research perspective we need to look at the industries where some new innovations can result in a substantial expansion in the value of that industry sector. So just at the moment I'm doing a little bit of work with macadamias. The macadamia industry is a rapidly growing one, but there are some issues with the productivity of the crop, and we're looking at some work with pollination systems in macadamia to try to get more nuts per tree, and the trees can hold a lot more nuts than they currently are producing. So if we can do the pollination systems better, higher yields, there's a big global demand for macadamias, bigger industry, better for the economy. Doing some work with sweet potatoes. The sweet potato industry has been expanding quite rapidly over the last 5 or so years. So we have a couple of PhD students that are doing work looking at improvements in pest management and new variety selection, trying to match the characteristics of the sweet potato to what consumers desire. And if we can do that well, supply the market with product that the consumers want, production will increase and value of the industry will increase. So that's 2 examples of areas where we're working. Food security is a huge issue globally, and I guess it is to some extent for Australia. And at the moment we produce more than enough food to supply our own population, and we probably have the capacity to produce a lot more food if our population grew. But there are a lot of pressures on the agricultural systems, not just in terms of the environmental pressures, but the standard of living of farmers, for example. We need to come up with more efficient, productive, profitable farming systems so that farming becomes a more attractive profession, and that will then provide the impetus for greater food production. And I think huge opportunities for Australia with our northern neighbours expanding in affluence. The food demand from Asia is going to grow very, very quickly, and we're in a prime position to support it. And I think from a region like Central Queensland that has predominantly an agricultural base, it's really important for the local university to undertake teaching at undergraduate level in agriculture and at postgraduate level, and to do research in agriculture, because we'll be feeding ideas and innovations, working with the industry to help them to come up with new ways of doing things. Our graduates will go out and start working in the industry. Some of those graduates, with the knowledge that they've generated from their undergraduate degree, they'll be some of the leaders of the industry in the future, and they'll be the ones that will probably develop the new ideas that expand our industry to 2-3 times the size it is now.